What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, an interesting question has been raised, and then I thought about it. This is a situation where we know now we got information that the highly anticipated July 29th, Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena, mega undefeated welterweight showdown. That was a fight that was anticipated, the biggest fight anticipated in the last decade. On paper, supposed to be a 50-50 fight. History was on the line. Top 2, pound for pound, best fighters in the top 5, pound for pound, best fighters in the world between Errol the True Spence Jr. and Terrence Bud Crawford, right? The fight didn't play out how many people anticipated seeing this fight play out. It played out very one-sided. A dominant performance in favor of Terrence Bud Crawford, who is now 40 wins, no loss and no draw, 31 big wins by way of knockout. He is 36 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. And Errol the True Spence Jr., former unified 3-belt, WBA, WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, who is now 28 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout, 33 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. Errol Spence Jr. got dropped in the second round, twice in the 7th, and stopped in the 9th. And now we got reports that the rematch, that we expected it to happen, not because you really wanted it to happen, but because you expected it to happen, where Errol Spence had the right to activate a rematch clause for an immediate rematch from Terrence Crawford. And Terrence Crawford would be obligated to fulfill said rematch, right? And on top of that, you would have now you would have Terrence Crawford able to get an automatically bigger share of the pie, and Terrence Crawford would have to, would be in position of power to be able to choose what weight class the rematch took place in. Well, Errol Spence revealed that he had cataract surgery that was hindering his vision going into the fight. He had a broken rib going into the fight, that he couldn't spar and properly train and prepare for Terrence Crawford a month out from the fight. He didn't get approved for the injections in his side to ease the pain a week before the fight. And, he said that was the reason that stopped him from performing to the best of his abilities. He said, why you think I get hit with so many hooks and jabs, right? To that, Terrence Crawford wasn't happy. Terrence Crawford, he stated, listen, I've heard it all from Errol Spence now, all the excuses. And I'm glad we already accomplished what we accomplished. I'm glad it's over. I wish you nothing but the best moving forward, right? He has no interest. Errol Spence wasn't happy with that. He responded, don't get out your emotions. Let's run it back. Now we hear today that was a few weeks ago. Now we hear today that Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford rematch is simply not going to happen. Now, keep in mind, they fought July 29th. Errol Spence had a mandatory challenger for the International Boxing Federation, better known as the IBF, President Mr. Darryl Peoples. And he came by way of now newly crowned IBF welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, the Phenom, as I refer to him as, in Jaron Boots Ennis, who has 31 wins, no losses, no draw, 28 wins by way of knockout. He is 26 years of age, 5'10" with a 74-inch arm reach, right? He was Errol Spence's mandatory challenger, but Errol Spence was allowed to go ahead and focus on Terrence Crawford fight. Terrence Crawford inherited Jaron Boots Ennis as his mandatory challenger, right? Terrence Crawford had the rematch clause with Errol Spence that was already set, and Errol Spence activated, which means he could not fight Jaron Ennis. He was stripped of his titles. The IBF, that is. Jaron was elevated to the IBF champion. Now they're saying that the rematch is not going to come to fruition. So I'm saying, well, who else is Terrence Crawford going to fight, right? And I say I would like to see him fight Jaron Boots Ennis, me personally. That's my personal preference. But then it came to mind, since Errol Spence stated that it wasn't the weight that hindered him, it was his eye, it was the ribs, so on and so forth, that hindered him against the Terrence Crawford fight. And Terrence Crawford is considered the best fighter in the world. Okay, and Terrence Crawford has a lot of similarities to Jaron Boots Ennis. Now, if Errol Spence not going to get the fight with Terrence Crawford, why not see Jaron Boots Ennis and Errol Spence? Because, again, Errol Spence was holding the belt, Jaron Ennis chose to go that path. Now, I know he's coming off of a devastating loss, but nobody has an issue with Errol Spence rematching Terrence Crawford because they said that he was hampered, he was injured, he was handicapped going into the Terrence Crawford fight. So now he'll be 100% of himself in the rematch, and Terrence Crawford should be giving him the rematch, right? Well, if Terrence Crawford don't want to give him the rematch, and Terrence Crawford is actually chasing down Tim Tszyu at 154, well, why wouldn't Errol Spence at this point, and why don't the fans demand to see Errol Spence chase down Jaron Boots Ennis to regain his IBF title? He gained that IBF title May of 2017. That was the first belt Errol Spence captured when he beat former welterweight world champion British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook in the UK for that IBF title. He stopped him in the 11th round. That was the first belt he held, and he held it from 2017 until he lost it to Terrence Crawford in 2023 for 6 years. So is it bad to see, or is it a mismatch for Errol Spence to go into a fight with Jaron Boots Ennis? Because if you feel like it's a mismatch because of the performance he put out and because he was dominated, then why would you want to see Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford rematch? If you feel like Errol Spence didn't have the same showing he should have had, he didn't perform to the best of his abilities against Terrence Crawford because he was handicapped, then why don't we call for Terrence Crawford to fight Tim Tszyu as he's chasing down, or Jamel Charlo, and then call for Errol Spence to fight Jaron Boots Ennis? Because if we feel like Jaron Boots Ennis is a mirror of Terrence Crawford, and they're on the same level, and everybody's calling for, including myself, Terrence Crawford to fight Jaron Boots Ennis, and let's say Terrence Crawford goes a different route, well, what's wrong with Errol Spence and Jaron Boots Ennis? Or do you feel like, well, Jaron Boots Ennis would be taking advantage of Errol Spence, who's not physically the same anymore? Because if that's the case, then you don't believe he truly would beat Terrence Crawford. Or do you believe that Jaron Boots Ennis is actually above Terrence Crawford? Because, again, the fans are calling for Jaron Boots Ennis to fight Terrence Crawford. But Errol Spence rematch with Terrence Crawford, the fans are saying that Errol Spence wasn't himself. Something was wrong with Errol Spence. Something was off. Terrence Crawford ain't never performed like that. He ain't never looked that great. So then you've labeled that because of Errol Spence's handicap going into the fight. So if that's the case, a full, healthy version of Errol Spence should be a great fight for Jaron Boots Ennis to recapture that IBF title. Because, see, fans are calling for Terrence Crawford to fight Jaron Boots Ennis because they're saying that this would be historic for Terrence Crawford to be an undisputed champion again, recognized. Although he didn't lose his belt in the ring, he was stripped of the IBF title, so he didn't fight since that. So he goes into a fight with Jaron Ennis, it'll be considered him becoming undisputed again. Well, he didn't lose it in the ring. He didn't move on. He got stripped, and he didn't even have another fight since then. So it would be him essentially defending his IBF title, right? No. So people don't have an issue with that. So wouldn't the same go for Errol Spence? Because wouldn't that make Errol Spence a 4-time world champion? I mean, he beat Kell Brook, he beat Sean Porter, and he beat Yadena Sugas. And keep in mind, Kell Brook fought Errol Spence immediately. The next fight he fought was Errol Spence after getting his orbital bone broken by Gennady Golovkin when he moved up to 160 from 147, came back down 8 months later and fought Errol Spence. And I give, and many people and everybody gives Errol Spence full credit for fighting Kell Brook. Well, now Errol Spence just lost to Terrence Crawford. So why wouldn't we give Jaron Boots Ennis full credit for beating Errol Spence, who was his mandatory? Because, see, Errol Spence, by the time he fought Jaron Boots Ennis, let's say if they fought in May, right? Then that means he would have been out the ring for about 8 months. You say August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. So he fought in July. So you say August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. That would be 10 months. If Jaron Ennis, or April, let's say 9 months. See, Kell Brook got his orbital bone broken by Gennady Golovkin and then fought Errol Spence 8 months later. And we give him full credit. We didn't say Kell Brook, nobody, when Errol Spence don't allow you to say Kell Brook was damaged goods. So Errol Spence fully healthy, Jaron Boots Ennis, Errol Spence gets the opportunity to fight for his belt because it wasn't the weight that hindered him, it was the broken ribs in the eye. Or do we look at Jaron Boots Ennis on the same level as Terrence Crawford and you want to see this fight? Or is it that you just think that Jaron Boots Ennis' style will beat Terrence Crawford and you just want to see Terrence Crawford lose? Or do you want to see competitive good fights? Because if Errol Spence was hindered and hampered by all of those injuries going into the Terrence Crawford fight, and now the rematch is not happening, and I'm intrigued to see how Errol Spence will look against Terrence Crawford in the rematch since he had all those injuries and all of those injuries are now removed and dealt with. So then I wouldn't mind seeing Errol Spence and Jaron Boots Ennis fight. Why not? If Terrence Crawford is not going to give us that, if Terrence Crawford is looking to chase down, go into another weight class and chase down Tim Tszyu or Jamel Charlo, Errol Spence ain't going to fight Jamel Charlo. He said he's not retiring. He said, y'all can cancel all the retirement talk because I'm not retiring. And I don't do tune-ups. I only fight the best. As he has shown us. He has proved that. So he ain't going to fight Jamel Charlo. He ain't going to fight Tim Tszyu. He don't want no parts of Keith Thurman. For obvious reasons. He not rematching Terrence Crawford, then why not see Jaron Boots Ennis and Errol the True Spence Jr.? Isn't that a mega fight? Because Errol Spence healthy would be a different fight for Terrence Crawford. So if he healthy, a different fight for Terrence Crawford, then him healthy would be a legit threat to Jaron Ennis, right? I would love to see it. Just a thought. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Your boy Blue signing off. I'm gone. Peace.